This is Gemara Menachos Daf Samoch, and we're holding on Nun Tesamid Beis. We are 3 lines before the white lines as the Gemara continues discussing different items that either were not or yes were supposed to be inside the mincha. Now we move on to discussing what happens if the minchas chayte has oil added to it. So we pick it up 3 lines from the bottom of the white lines. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef Amar Rav Yechon. Nasan mashu shemen, al gabe kizayis mincha. If someone put a tiny bit of oil upon a kizayis of a mincha, pasal, he made the mincha pasal. My taima, lo yasim sima. Lo yasim, The Torah says lo yasim. Sima koldu. And the word some to place means any little bit. Continues the pasuk aleha. Adiik until there is shiura. That you're not over the Isra until there is at least a measure of a kizayis. So you need a kizayis of mincha, a kizayis of flour. And then any bit of shemen, one is chayiv for. Ve'amar Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, 2 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Yochanan, nasan kizayis levaina. You put a kizayis of levaina al gabe mashu mincha, on top of a mashu of a karban mincha. Pasal my time leitin ksiv adik nisina leah. You need to have a proper nisina. Nisina is a kizayis. So if only chayiv if you have a kizayis of levaina that was placed upon it. But we continue on to Samach Amid Aleph. It says the Gemara, you need a kizayis on it, but what about it itself? What is its quantity? Even a mashu. Why? And therefore, that's the reason you're going to be chayiv, even if it's on the smallest amount. And according to the Amri, take the shaila that we're going to have to wait for Eliyahu Hanavi for. Continues the Gemara, 5 lines down. Nasan shemen al shireha. Oil is placed on the shirayim. Tana Rabbanan, says the Gemara, lo yasim aleh shemen v'lo yitain. Oil is not placed, and you should not place levaina. Yachal, I would think b'shnei kahanim. I would think that maybe that both of these isurim are only when 2 kahanim, 1 kain puts the oil, 1 kain puts the levaina. Talmud Loimar says the pasuk aleha begufa shel mincha kasim medaber, even if it's only 1 kain. V'loi b'kayin, and not of the kayin. So even 1 kayin, you don't need multiples. 1 would be enough. Continues the Braisa, Yachal, I would think in kli al gabe kli. I would think, do not put a kli of the oil, shemen levaina, upon a kli of the mincha, vim nasan pasal, tamalei maraleh, that what, it's not possible if it's on a kli of it, but rather, begufa shal mincha akasim medaber, it has to be on the actual flour, on the actual karban mincha. And now we move on to the next Mishnah. And the next Mishnah discusses some of the avodas of the mincha, unique to the karban mincha, which is that you have to do a hagasha. You have to bring this flour, oil, water, whatever the mixture is, based on each of the proper karban minchas to the mizbeach. And tenufa, a process of waving. So says the Gemara, yesh. There are times there are karbanos, 2 nice hagasha, v'yesh, 2 nice tenufa. Sometimes it requires waving, and sometimes hagasha utenufa, and sometimes tenufa v'lay hagasha, and sometimes lay tenufa v'lay hagasha. So really, in a very similar makeup to the previous Mishnah, says our Mishnah, sometimes just hagasha without tenufa, sometimes hagasha and tenufa, sometimes tenufa without hagasha, and sometimes none of them. Okay, so those are the 4 permutations. Says the Mishnah, ve'ilu, and these, tu'unais just hagasha, but ve'in tu'unas tenufa is what? Minchas ha'soiles, v'amachvas, marcheshes, v'chalis, or kikim, minchas kohanim, u'minchas kohen Mashiach, minchas necharim, minchas nashim, u'minchas chayte. all of these cases require hagasha. You have to bring the mixture to the mizbeach, but not tenufa. Rabbi Shimon Aimer, minchas kohanim, minchas kohen v'shiach, ein behem hagasha. Why not? V'shein behem kamitza. And says Rabbi Shimon, chol she'ein behem kamitza, ein behem hagasha. So Rabbi Shimon lays down a yesod that there can only be hagasha. There's only a din of bringing it close if there was a din of kamitza. So we have the 4 cases in the Mishnah, and then the Gemara elaborating on one in which Rav Shimon argues. Based upon that, Amar Rabba, Kol echad detanan eser tanan. Anywhere the Mishnah lists a list of karban menachos, eser, there's 10 different types. My kamashlan, nafukim with Rav Shimon, the Amar mechs chalzu mechs rakikin yavi kamashlan delay. Mamish, the exact same thing as the previous Mishnah. Now that we got that out of the way, says the Gemara, what is the source? What is the source of hagasha, of bringing the mincha close? Minani mili ditan rabbanan, 2 lines on the white lines. Ilu nemar avasa asher yasem eileo laHashem v'kriv elakayin v'gisha. 1 long pasuk. If it would have said you bring to Hashem that which you prepared, and the only owner brings it to the Kohen brings it to the Mizbeach. I would have thought there's nothing that requires to be brought close. Ella Kaimetz Bilvad, only the actual Kamitza, those 3 fingers that were separated. But mincha minayin, how do I know that the entire karban has to be? Tamalaymar, mincha, says the pasuk. Minchas chayte minayin, how do I know minchas chayte? Tamalaymar esa mincha. Says the Gemara, v'dinu. Says the Gemara, do you really need an extra pasuk of esa mincha? But v'dinu, l'chayra, it's a kalva chaymer. De'mar hacha, it says over here as we turn over to Samacha mebeiz minchas chayva v'nemar hacha minchas nidava. So 2 types of karban menachos are listed in the pasuk. Ma minchas nidava tunagasha. So minchas chayva tunagasha. So why do we need a separate limud of esa mincha? Why can we learn out one from the next? Says the Gemara, and therefore because it says it 2 times, Ma'ale minchas nidava, that what? Shekei teuna shemen levaina minchas saita, and therefore should be the same thing over here. Says the Gemara, not so fast, because saita techiach. Ma'ale minchas saita shekei tenufa minchas nidava techiach. So we have 3 different karbanis, and in classical Gemara the Gemara says 6 lines from the top of Samacha Mebeis. Says the Gemara, v'chazar edin b'rizekris. Anytime we have multiples, we have the triangle. What is this sarashave? Sheshave likmitza v'shave leha gasha. And that's going to be our makar. And therefore, says the Gemara, why do we need an extra pasuk of esa mincha? We should learn it out from a kal v'chaymer, from this ma latzara shave. Afani avi minchas chayte sheshave lehem likmitza and Tishav the Agasha. Frekti Gemara, 10 lines down, the first 1 line is the Agasha. But wait, Malatzara Shavish Shekein Ochshu Lavai, Ba'ashir Kibani. In all the cases of your Tzara Shaveh, the Ashir, the Ani, they bring the same karban. Timer Minchas Chayte, you're going to bring this as a raya, as a makar to Minchas Chayte, that what? That there's a difference. So we see that a Minchas Chayte has unique dinim. So who says you can learn it out for this matzah? Because by Minchas Chayte, there's different amounts. Tamalaymar Esa Mincha. So therefore, says the pasuk, that's why you need the pasuk of Esa Mincha. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon Aimer Veivesa. Says Rav Shimon, no. The pasuk says by a karban minchas, a minchas nedava veivesa. The rabbis comes to include minchas Aimer lahagasha. B'cheinu Aimer veivesem es Aimer reishes kitzirchem alakayin vehikriva, which comes the rabbis, which comes to go back. B'cheinu Aimer. Similarly, the pasuk says veivesem Aimer reishes kitzirchem alakayin. Frakti Gemara, or say the Shimon continues darshaning. Vehekriva, says the pasuk. The rabbis minchas saita, that what? La gasha. B'cheinu oimer vehekriva salam mizbeach. Says the Gemara on this last din, v'dinhu. It's very logical. Uma minchas chayte she'ina tuna tenufa. Yet tuna hagasha. A minchas chayte has no din of tenufa. Yet yes, has a din of hagasha bringing close to the mizbeach. Minchas chayte she'tuna tenufa ina din she'tuna hagasha. Says Gemara Nacham, well, not so fast. Minchas chayte she'kein what? Ba'achite minchas ha'omer techiach. But minchas ha'omer she'kein tuna shemen u'levayna minchas chayte techiach. And here we go again. V'chazer adin l'rizeh k'rizeh v'l'rizeh k'rizeh ha'atzara shava shebahen sheshava l'kmitza v'shava lehagasha. That is both could be a din of kmitza and hagasha, and from there afaniya v'minchas soita. Excuse me, sheshavasa lehen l'kmitza tishva lehen lehagasha. Perfecti Gemara Nachama malatz adashava shebahen shekein lochshu lavai kemach can be brought from flour. Tovar minchas chayte shilshu lavai kemach tamar mevek riva, and that's what we need the pasuk for. Rabbi Yehuda Omer veveisa l'rabbis minchas soita lahagasha. B'cheinu Omer veveisa karmana es karbana oileha. Ava minchas Omer loy tzricha kra my taima. Says, why does it not need a pasuk? Because medina kasya. What's the din? Uma minchas chayte sheina tuna tenufa ya tuna hagasha. Minchas Omer shetuna tenufa eino din shetuna hagasha. Says Mara, wait, but mal minchas chayte shkin ba chitin. Minchas chayte chiach mal minchas chayte shkin ba levarer avoin. It comes to see, it was there in Avera, the famous site carbon. Demaskeres avoin minchas chayte chiach. Chazer adin. Lo rizeh krizeh v'lo rizeh krizeh hatzara shava sheben shekein shava l'kemitza v'shava lehagasha, and therefore af ani avi minchas ha'omer sheshavasa lahen l'kemitza tishva lahen lehagasha, and therefore we're going to learn out one from the other. But says the Gemara my Pirchis, what are you going to ask on this? That which we just said. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon parich achi. Rav Shimon is going to ask as follows. Shimon Baruch, Umar Baruch said you can't ask a kasha. Says the Gemara, you just told me you can't ask kasha. Rav Shimon Baruch, Rav Shimon indeed has a kasha as follows. Now what? Malatz adashav shebehen shkein mitzuyan. They're coming. Rav Yehuda, according to Rav Yehuda, the Rabba, mitzuya tvei. The minchas omer is more common. Why? Because it's brought yearly. Hanach zinin lo mishkach liklal. Whereas a minchas chayte, minchas soita is maybe not brought at all. Or you know, maybe you're going to tell me, omer vevisa. Omer vevisa elishiyached misnadev u'maybe mincha acheres. Says Zimar chutz me'ele v'dinu. That chutz me'ele, excuse me, I lost a place. Chutz me'ila shebe'inyan, aside from those that are listed by the Minchas Nidava. Why? V'dinu. Ma sibur maybe mincha minachitin chayva, or maybe mincha minasayrin chayva. Av yachshe mincha minachitin nidava, or yavi mincha minasayrin nidava. Talmud laimar, and that's why we need the pasuk of what? Says the Torah, Eila in li ela, Eila in li ela, Eme, Oy in li ela. You know what? We're running way too fast. Let's circle back around. Let's circle back around with Shitas Rav Yehuda, Adrabah Mitzuya Tvei, and this is where we're going to pick it up. Amir Tzashem, the last now line in the next year, we'll pick it up from Shitas Rav Yehuda, B'siyata Dishmai.